Hello everyone, good evening students. So today I'm going to discuss the INACAT dermatology part questions. So we'll start with the first questions. So painful ulcer on tip of the glands, what are the causes? So this type of questions, there are multiple options are there for this type of questions. So you should know what are the causes of painful ulcer on the tip of the glands. So let us see what are the options provided here. So Haemophilus ducreyi, HSV, gonorrhea, LGV. So before going to this question proper, so we'll discuss what are the causes of painful ulcers or the tip of the glands. So it could be sexually transmitted or it is non-sexually transmitted. So here, so painful ulcers over genitalia. So it could be sexually transmitted or it can be through non-sexual route. So sexually transmitted infection, the most common causes herpes genitalis, which is caused by herpes simplex virus. So herpes genitalis. And one more thing is, it is chancroid, which is caused by Haemophilus ducreyi. So genital ulcer is an important topic. So you should know which ulcers are painful and which ulcers are non-painful. So coming to the next part, that is non-sexual part, it could be traumatic ulcer or it could be a drug reaction or any vascular causes related ulcers. So it could be painful ulcers. So the correct option here are Haemophilus ducreyi, which causes chancroid. As I told, they present with multiple painful ulcers. So the correct option here is Haemophilus ducreyi and even HSV, that is herpes simplex virus. HSV2 type 2 most commonly causes genital herpes or herpes genitalis. So this will go in detail with the genital ulcer topic now because it is very important for any entrance exam. So genital ulcers, basically you have to remember 5 important type of genital ulcers. So one is syphilis, syphilitic ulcer, syphilis, then LGV, herpes genitalis, herpes genitalis, then chancroid, and one more is granuloma inguinale. So each are important and you should know the features of each ulcer so that you can easily differentiate and you can mark the correct answer. So I'll just show a table or I'll just show a flow chart how to remember this genital ulcers now. So let us start with syphilis. So there is a genital ulcer here. Genital ulcer. So first is syphilis. So syphilis is caused by spirochete treponema pallidum. Usually it is a solitary, so single ulcer, non-painful. So this term is very important. Solitary non-painful ulcer with indurated margins. With indurated margins. So this is the classical feature of syphilitic ulcer. So remember, any solitary non-painful ulcer or genitalia should raise the suspicion of syphilis. So second is herpes genitalis. So which is most common. So herpes genitalis. So the incubation period is very less in case of herpes. So usually it is less than 72 hours. So this is characterized by, initially it starts with fluid filled lesions. So any herpes infection, they start with fluid-filled lesions. Because why the fluid-filled lesions? Because of the ballooning degeneration of the cells. So herpes can cause ballooning degeneration of the cells on histopathological examination. So this is the reason why they cause fluid-filled lesion. And this fluid-filled lesion rupture to leave painful ulcers. So ulcers will be multiple. So painful ulcers will be there. So multiple ulcers. So next is chancroid. So chancroid is caused by bacteria Haemophilus ducreyi. Just remember, school of fish appearance or thumbprint appearance on gram stain. So chancroid is caused by Haemophilus ducreyi. This is also, and one more thing you have to remember is in syphilis there will be inguinal lymphadenopathy. Either it is unilateral or bilateral. Even in herpes genitalis you can get lymphadenopathy because of the secondary infection. Chancroid, usually you will get multiple painful ulcers. So multiple painful ulcers. So multiple painful ulcers where there will be, the edge will be very soft. So soft edges. So that is why it is called as soft chancre. So chancre is seen in syphilis, but soft chancre, that is why it is why chancroid is called as soft chancre, because the edges will be very soft compared to syphilis where it is indurated. So that's why it is called as hard chancre. Then coming to LGV. So LGV usually presents with inguinal bubo. Usually the ulcer may be seen in LGV, but it is very transitory. So it disappears within few days. So the patient may not notice it, or the patient may not remember that he had an ulcer, genital ulcer, when you ask him that whether he had a genital ulcer. So the ulcer will be very transitory in case of LGV. So inguinal lymphadenopathy will be there. And remember this Greenblatt sign or groove sign, which is seen in case of LGV. So Greenblatt or groove sign is seen in LGV. So next is granuloma inguinal, which is caused by Klebsiella granulomatis. Previously it was called as Chelametobacterium granulomatis, but recently the name has been changed to Klebsiella granulomatis. So this granuloma inguinal can present with pseudobubo. So remember PGI. So pseudobubo is seen in granuloma inguinal. And one more thing is it can present with inguinal lymphadenopathy. Genital ulcer, usually you can see the genital ulcer is usually that is beefy red in color. The base is beefy red in color and it can bleed on touch. So this is the difference. These are the few important differentiating points between genital ulcers. There are so many other causes of genital ulcers which can be caused by parasitic infection, and it can be caused because of EBV also. That is called as Lipschutz ulcer. So this term you remember. So Epstein-Barr virus causes Lipschutz ulcer, but it is not transmitted through sexual route. So just remember this name, and it is more commonly seen in younger age group. Younger women are more commonly affected in this case of in this type of ulcers, and there will be traumatic ulcer, and there will be other causes like schistosomiasis, then schistosomiasis, then other parasitic infections can cause genital ulcer. But the most important genital ulcers which we need to know for NEET exams are these 5 types of genital ulcers along with the Lipschutz ulcer. So just remember these terms. And you should read about the different STI kits which are used for different genital ulcer. For herpes it is different. For herpes it is different because because it is a viral infection, and all other things are parasitic. The all other things are bacterial. So it is different for other ulcers. So just remember different types of kits and the color coding of the kits with treatment part. go to the second question. True regarding chancroid. School of fish appearance, painful ulcers, bleed on touch, and bruise sign. So school of fish appearance, as you all know, it is the chancroid is caused by Haemophilus ducreyi. So it is a gram-negative organism, and it provides school of fish appearance. Painful ulcers, yes, obviously painful ulcers are seen, and bleed on touch. Yes, sometimes when you manipulate the ulcer, it can bleed on touch, but bruise sign is seen in LGV. So all the three options could be right in this. So whenever you manipulate the ulcer, it can bleed. So don't think that only this granuloma inguinal ulcer will bleed on manipulation. So these all three options are right. So let us see a few points about chancroid. So chancroid is caused by gram-negative organism, that is Haemophilus ducreyi. So how does a patient presents to you? That he may present with multiple painful ulcers. So just remember there are two painful ulcers in STA, that is herpes genitalis and chancroid. So herpes genitalis, they usually present with multiple fluid-filled vesicles before the onset of lesions. So here multiple ulcers can be seen over genitalia. Along with that, inguinal bubo, that is inguinal lymphadenopathy, is seen in 2/3 of the cases. So one more thing is like one more important thing is histopathological examination. Here you can get 3 zones. So 3 zones you can identify in chancroid. Just remember this part. So one more thing is like you have to differentiate it from herpes genitalis. So as I told earlier, you have to just think about the fluid filled lesions. So you have to ask the history of fluid filled lesions before the onset of ulcer, so that it will rule out herpes. So chancroids are also like painful ulcers. So there are multiple types of chancroid, that is giant chancroid, giant, dwarf, and chancroid which is complicated by anaerobic organism, and classical chancroid. So many other types are there. So this chancroidal ulcer is also called as soft sore, because or soft chancre. So don't get confused with chancre of syphilis. Chancre of syphilis is like it is indurated at the margin. That's why it is called as hard chancre. So hard chancre is seen in syphilis, whereas soft chancre is the feature of this chancroid. So there will be no induration in the ulcer. So that is the differentiating point. And syphilis ulcer, usually it is non-painful, whereas in chancroid you will get painful ulcers. So one more thing is treatment is mainly by azithromycin 1 gram, azithromycin 1 gram, then which is a start dose, or you can give cefixime, erythromycin, and ciprofloxacin in different doses. So white color kit can be used. If you are planning to give treatment for chancroid in syndromic management, here you can use the white color kit. So white color coded kit can be used in the treatment of chancroid. So coming to the next question, identify this lesion. So here there is a picture based question where you are seeing a ring shaped lesion here, and you can look at the margins also here. So margins can be easily made out, and there is a ring within the ring lesion. So here the lesion appears like this. So this is one lesion and this is the other margin. So this could be a annular lesion. So the correct option here is annular. So why it is not discoid? The discoid lesion could be like this. It could be a disc shaped. Targetoid lesions. So I'll just tell you a few points about targetoid lesion. So targetoid lesions are nothing but they'll be having two zones. So central necrotic zone and the surrounding circle-like thing. So this is the central necrotic zone. It looks like a targetoid. So something is targeting. So necrotic zone, and this is erythematous zone. So what is the difference between target lesions and targeted lesions? Target lesions are different. So target lesions are nothing. Target lesions are also called as iris lesions. So iris lesions, which is the classical features of erythema multiforme, which are seen in erythema multiforme. So here in target lesions, so target lesions will be having three zones. So targetoid lesion has got only two zones. So here you can get the three zones. So here the central necrotic area, this is. So necrotic area will be there and surrounded by edematous area. So this is edematous area. And here the other circle is erythema, that is redness. So target lesions are also called as iris lesions, and they've got three zones, that is necrotic area, central necrotic area surrounded by edematous area and erythematous area. Annulare, we don't know the cause, but it is the annular lesions. Then nummular lesions. It looks like round in color, but there is no central clearing like annular lesion. So let us see few important lesions. You know that the primary lesions and secondary lesions. So primary lesions, I'll just tell you the names. So primary lesions are macules, papules, plaques, then this pullae, vesicles, pustules, then wheals. Then secondary lesions are nothing but these are the lesions which is manipulated because of the primary lesions. For example, scratching. They are nothing but there are nothing but excoriations, ulcers, atrophy, telangiectasia, etc. And the special lesions are burrows, milias, and comedones. I'm just telling you the list because you have to see each and every picture and then you have to remember. So, investigation of choice for allergic contact dermatitis, patch test, radioimmunosorbent test, IgE levels. The fourth option is not recalled. So allergic contact dermatitis. So allergic contact dermatitis, as you all know, it is a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. So it is a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, and recent classification you should see because there are multiple types of type 4 hypersensitivity reactions are also there, like type 4A, type 4B, type 4C and type 4D. But the allergic contact dermatitis is an example for type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. Let us see these two options. So radioimmunosorbent assay, that is RAST. RAST is used in the estimation of IgE. As you all know, IgE is involved in type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. So this is not useful in allergic contact dermatitis, and even IgE levels, it is type 1. So investigation of choice for allergic contact dermatitis is patch test. So let us see a few points about patch test. So patch test is an example for type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. So just remember this, this was asked once. So type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, it is used in the diagnosis of allergic contact dermatitis. So remember, it is not irritant contact dermatitis, it is allergic contact dermatitis. So usually what you'll do, what is the procedure of patch test? So you'll be having so many allergens. So based on the history, you'll apply the allergens. So you'll apply the allergens over the back of the patient. So allergens will be applied to the back of the patient, and the patient is asked not to take bath, or he should not manipulate that strips, whatever the strips they have just pasted over the back. They should not manipulate, or they should not take bath. So after that, after 48 hours, so after 48 hours, they will remove the patch and they will read the results. So results will be read. So that results will be graded or based on erythema and reaction to the particular reagent. So if there is no response even after 48 hours, and if you have a strong suspicion, then you can read it after 96 hours. So you can read it after 4 days. So initially you will try to read it within 2 days, but if there is no response, then you can delay this. The results, and you can read the results after 96 hours, so that you won't miss the allergic contact reaction to a particular reagent. So just remember this 48 hours and 96 hours, which is very important. And there is one more variant of patch test that is called as true test. So just remember this name. True test is a variant of patch test. So coming to the next question, this is the image based question. So here you can see, so whenever there is an image based question, first you have to analyze the condition. So then you can easily make out the diagnosis. So here you can see there is an edema, and here you can see there is a discharging sinuses here. So you can see the discharging sinuses over this area. And here you can see multiple granules. These are the sinuses through which granules are discharging. So this is a classical case of mycetoma. So the correct option here is mycetoma. Why not it is chromoblastomycosis? So chromoblastomycosis can also present with the same thing, but the discharging granules will not be of this color. And sporotrichosis usually follows lymphatic route. So pheohypomycosis also doesn't affects the extremities. It usually affects the face and trunk. So the correct option here is mycetoma. So why it is mycetoma? Let us say few points about important points about mycetoma. So mycetoma can be divided into two types: eumycetoma and actinomycetoma. So there are two types of mycetoma. So one is with eumycetoma is caused by true fungus. So this is caused by true fungus, and this is caused by bacterial species, Actinomycetes species. So this is also called as Madura mycosis, because the disease was more common in Madurai. So Madurai, Tamil Nadu, this term was given, Madura mycosis. So this actinomycetoma is different. So this there are so many species which can cause eumycetoma and actinomycetoma. So eumycetoma is most commonly caused by Madurella griesii, Madurae, Madurella mycomatis, so mycetomatis, all these things. And actinomycetoma, it is caused by Nocardia species and actinomycosis species like Actinomycosis israeli, then Nocardia asteroids, so all these things, etc. So many other species are there. So let us see what are the clinical features of mycetoma. So clinical features, usually it is characterized by a triad of tumefaction, that is edema, tumefaction, discharging sinuses, so discharging sinuses, and granules. So granules will be discharged from the sinuses. So based on the different color of the granules, you are going to identify the species. So this is the triad which constitutes the clinical feature of mycetoma. So there will be history of trauma. It is more commonly seen in agriculturists. So history of trauma should be asked. So they can give you the question like this. Yeah, an agriculturist presented with history of edematous swelling or edematous swelling over the leg with the discharging sinuses and black granules. So what is the diagnosis? And there was a history of trauma. So what is the diagnosis? Then you have to think in terms of mycetoma because it is more commonly seen in lower extremities. So even tuberculous verrucosa cutis, usually it is also usually presents after the trauma, but it is more commonly seen. It is a solitary plaque. It doesn't present with any discharging granules. Even chromomycosis is like a verrucous plaque. It doesn't have any discharging sinuses. So you have to rule out the option before uh, based on the history and clinical examination. So that is very important. So just listen to this and just make a note of all the three. Tuberculous verrucosa cutis, usually it is a solitary plaque which presents with verrucous surface, and there will be history of trauma. So chromomycosis, there will be history of trauma along with that verrucous plaque will be there mainly over the extremities, and it can be differentiated only by the histopathological examination where you can see the medlar bodies or sclerotic bodies. So here in mycetoma, you can just see the fungus. So how do you diagnose this condition? So diagnosis is mainly by the granules. So you can identify the species, different species by the color, different color of the granules. So that is very important. So and you can also do the histopathological examination. You can use the different strains used for the fungus, and you can uh, just stay in the fungus. It will stay in the fungus along with the granules. So histopathology. Then, so how do you treat this condition, which is very important, which is a recent question. So eumycetoma, you can treat with antifungals. So eumycetoma, you can treat with the antifungals. Whereas this actinomycetoma, so this you have to remember now. So actinomycetoma, there is a regimen for treatment of actinomycetoma that is called as Welsh regimen. So this you have to remember, where you are using the antibiotics here, not antifungals, because it is caused by bacteria. So Welsh regimen. So Welsh regimen is characterized. It constitutes the cotrimoxazole. Cotrimoxazole will be there in this, along with gentamicin. You are giving IV gentamicin. So I'm not going to the details of the dose. So gentamicin, and there is one more regimen called modified Welsh. So they can ask you what is the component of modified Welsh regimen. Here, along with these two, rifampicin is given, that is 10 mg per kg. So rifampicin, cotrimoxazole, and gentamicin constitutes the modified Welsh regimen. So this you have to remember. So remember the triad of mycetoma, then traumatic history, along with that how to differentiate between different causes of different lesions with a similar appearance, and the treatment part. So these are the few important points you should remember. So coming to the next question, subepidermal blister with neutrophils, treatment of choices, rituximab, dapsone, cyclosporin, azathioprine. So whenever they are asking subepidermal blister, then you have to know what are the causes of subepidermal blister. So let us see what are the causes of subepidermal blistering disorder. The most common subepidermal blistering disorder is bullous pemphigoid. So bullous pemphigoid is the most common cause of subepidermal blister. Then dermatitis herpetiformis, dermatitis herpetiformis. So I'll just mention few important subepidermal blisters. There are so many causes of subepidermal blisters, but I'll just mention some 5 or 6 which are most important. Then epidermolysis bullosa acquisita, Bullosa acquisita. So Porphyria cutánea tarda. Porphyria cutánea tarda. Pseudoporphyria. Pseudoporphyria. So linear IgA dermatosis. There are so many others like bullous form of systemic lupus erythematosus, then anti-P200 pemphigoid, herpes gestationis. So that is also important. Linear IgA dermatosis, then herpes gestationis. So these are the few important causes of subepidermal blisters. So here they are specifically asking which disease has got subepidermal blister along with neutrophils. So we'll go back to the options now. They're asking what is the treatment of choice. So let us see the important aspects of each subepidermal blistering disorder, that is most important ones. So that first one is bullous pemphigoid. So I'll call it as BP here. So here there will be subepidermal blisters, but eosinophils will be more prominent. So this option is ruled out. Neutrophils can be present, but eosinophils are most common. So what happens in dermatitis herpetiformis? So you can see the subepidermal blister along with the neutrophils. So here also you can see the neutrophils most commonly, and you can see the neutrophils along the tips of the dermal papilla. Then coming to linear IgA dermatosis, here also you can see the neutrophils. And all other disorders which I mentioned, they usually get a mixture of both neutrophils and eosinophils, or plasma cells can be seen. But here we have to rule out either dermatitis herpetiformis or linear IgA dermatosis. But there is an improper history. The examiner has just asked subepidermal blister along with neutrophils. So either it could be dermatitis herpetiformis or linear IgA dermatosis. But whenever there is a neutrophilic infiltration, then you have to give dapsone. Why dapsone? Dapsone. So why? Because it prevents chemotaxis. So this is a drug which inhibits chemotaxis and decreases the neutrophilic accumulation here, and it also decreases the free radical production. So this is the most important mechanism of action why dapsone is anti-neutrophilic. So free radicals, so decrease production of free radicals and decreases chemotaxis or inhibits chemotaxis. That's why with any disorder with neutrophils, neutrophilic infiltration or neutrophilic pathology because of neutrophils, then dapsone could be a drug of choice. So we'll go back to the options now. So what are the other drugs they have given? Rituximab, cyclosporin and azathioprine. So rituximab is a monoclonal antibody. So rituximab is a monoclonal antibody against CD20 cells. So this is against CD20 cells. So this is most commonly used in the treatment of pemphigus vulgaris. So pemphigus vulgaris, you are using rituximab, and there are two protocols for this use of rituximab in pemphigus vulgaris. Just remember the name. They can ask you in exams. One is rheumatoid arthritis protocol, rheumatoid arthritis protocol, and one is lymphoma protocol. So these are the two protocols which are used for the rituximab in treating pemphigus vulgaris. So other two options, cyclosporin and azathioprine, can be used as a steroid sparing agent in case of pemphigus vulgaris. But in dermatitis herpetiformis or linear IgA dermatosis, because neutrophils are the key cells which are found in the pathogenesis, you have to give dapsone because dapsone is anti-neutrophilic. Just remember this. So coming to the next question, a girl with growing lump in the left side of the neck. She had freckles and flat spots on face and trunk. Mass was firm and non-tender. So what is the diagnosis? So here is a girl with a lump in the left side of the neck. She had freckles and flat spots. So flat spots and freckles. So this could be a case of neurofibromatosis because the examiner is describing the cephalate macules. Most cephalate and this ash leaf macules. So this could be a case of neurofibromatosis. Mass was firm and non-tender. So what is the diagnosis? So neural tumor, most unlikely. Cystic hygroma, as you all know, it is more commonly seen in the neck. So it is also most commonly seen in the neck, and it is not associated with these freckles or flat spots, and you know that it is translucent. So there is no classical description of cystic hygroma. So lipoma is was firm and non-tender. It could be a lipoma also, but there is no associated things like freckles and flat spots. So the correct option here is neurofibroma. So let us see a few points about neurofibromatosis. So neurofibromatosis 1, type 1, or von Recklinghausen disease. So von Recklinghausen's disease. So it is caused due to defect in neurofibromin or and Merlin gene. And Merlin gene, which are found on chromosome number 17 and 22. So just remember this chromosome numbers also, they've asked once. So what are the clinical features? So cephalate macules. So cephalate macules. Oh, sorry, I told the wrong thing just because of the confusion. Ash-leaf macules are seen in tuberous sclerosis. Sorry, not in neurofibromatosis. Sorry for the confusion. So cephalate macules, then neurofibromas, plexiform neurofibromas, plexiform neurofibromas, optic gliomas, then spine abnormalities like scoliosis, and etc. So this neurofibromatosis type 1 can be associated with juvenile myelomonocytic leukemia, that is JMML, can be associated, and it can present with other systemic organs tumors. So you can see the Lisch nodules. These are the hematomas in the iris. So this diagram is very, very important. So just have a look at this diagram, Lisch nodules in the iris, hematomas in the iris. So they can just give you the ocular finding and they can ask you what is the diagnosis. So these are the few important features of neurofibromatosis type 1. So neurofibromatosis type 2 has got acoustic neuroma. So coming to the next question, so identify the lesion. So they have not mentioned the history, just they have given the lesion here in the picture. So you have to just be thorough with the basics first. So as you all know, we have got multiple lesions in the skin. So whenever we are describing a lesion, we start with primary lesion, secondary lesion, and special lesions. And the configuration of the lesions is also important. So just have a look at on all the types of lesions, that is primary lesions, secondary lesions, and special lesions. So here this is one such type of question where you are seeing a lesion here, round lesion. So just in a common man term, I can say it as a round lesion. So along with that, you are seeing the borders here. So borders are quite prominent here, and there is a central clearing. So there is a central clearing. So central clearing. So there are two circles here. So I can say it as a circle here, circular lesion. So circles here, and there is a prominent border here. So here also you can see the prominent border, and here also you can see the prominent border. So this looks like more of a like a ring-like lesion. So it looks like a ring like this. So this is nothing but it is annular lesion. So why? Let us see the other options first. So discoid lesion. So why it is not discoid? As you all know, discoid can be, it is like a disc shape. So it could be like this. It is not certainly annular. So it is not a circle thing. So what is targetoid lesion? So let us see what is targetoid lesion. So targetoid lesion. So it is different from target lesion. So just don't get confused. So targetoid lesion, I'll teach you the target lesion first. So as you all know, target lesion or iris lesion. So one more term is there, or iris lesion is seen in erythema multiforme, which is a classical feature of erythema multiforme. So how does a target lesion looks like? So target lesion, usually it looks like it will be having three zones. So here you can see the necrotic area surrounded by one circle, and this is one circle. So this is the necrotic area. It is looking like you're targeting something. So that's why it is called as target lesion. So necrotic area, this surrounding edematous area, and this is erythema or redness. So this there will be three zones in target lesion. So what about this targetoid lesion? So targetoid lesion is usually having only two areas. So this edematous area here, whatever you are seeing, the edematous area will be absent in case of targetoid lesion. So this is most commonly seen in cases of SJS, TN, and other drug reactions. So this is the difference between targetoid lesion and target lesion or iris lesion. So one more type is nummular lesion. So nummular lesion, it will be like a coin. So nummular. So it is most commonly seen in nummular eczema. So it will be like a coin shaped lesion. So coin shaped lesion is a characteristic feature of nummular eczema, where you are not seeing any circle in a circle pattern. So here, so this is just a nummular shape or coin shape. It will be like this. So in annular lesion you'll be getting the concentric circles, and the borders are more prominent. So here one this thing is there, then here. So annular lesions will be like this. There will be central clearing or not, we don't know, because we don't know which disease they have given in this picture. So just remember this annular lesion. So let us see few points about the primary lesions, secondary lesions, and special lesions. Primary, secondary, special lesions. I'll just name them. So primary is macule. So macules are nothing but these can be hypopigmented or hyperpigmented. They differ from the surrounding skin. So you can easily make out a macule, like there is some skin lesion compared to the surrounding skin, usually less than 0.5 centimeter, or it could be 0.5 to 1 centimeter. Then the one more thing is patch. Patch will be greater than, it is same as the macule, but it is greater than 0.5 centimeter. Then coming to papule. So these are the raised lesions from the skin. So usually it will be less than 0.5 centimeter. Then nodule. Nodule will be greater than 1 to 5 centimeter. So it ranges from 1 to 5 centimeter. It is also similar to papule. Then plaque. So these are the raised lesions, usually less than 0.5 centimeters. Sorry, yeah, less than, usually these are the raised lesions, and usually, so there could not be any size here. So plaque will be the raised lesions. Then wheals. So as you all know, wheals are seen in urticaria. So wheals, they are evanescent erythematous lesions that they disappear after some time. So wheals are characteristically seen in urticaria. So and one more important thing is vesicles. So vesicles are fluid-filled lesions less than 0.5 centimeter. Then bulla. Bulla can be tense or this thing, but it is greater than 0.5 centimeter. Then coming to the secondary lesions are most commonly caused because of some changes in the primary lesion. Either the patient would have scratched it or there will be an ulcer. So the secondary lesions mainly includes excoriations, scales, then ulcers, fissures, etc. So these are the few important secondary lesions. Then coming to the special lesions. So one important special lesion is burrow, and lichenification also comes under secondary lesions. So burrow is an important special lesion. So this you have to remember. So these are the few points about primary lesions, secondary lesions, and special lesions. If possible, you can just mug up through the definition of the each lesion, and you have to see the each lesion. I think after undergoing the skin postings, I think many of would have been know that what is a macule, what is a patch, what is papule, nodule, plaque, wheals, everything. So it's better to see the picture once, because this lesions, annular lesions and all, they come under configuration of the lesions. So how they are distributed. So this is a separate topic, configuration, but these are separate topic. So just go through the different configuration of skin lesions like annular lesions, then targetoid lesions, target lesions, then nummular lesions. And one more thing is they can be arranged in a form of a clusters, or they can arrange in the form of multiple papules can coalesce to form this arcuate lesions. Arcuate lesions are nothing but it is semilunar in shape. So different configurations are there. You can just go through in the textbook the pictures. So coming to the last question, STD visit by young with this painful lesion present in genital area, what will be the microscopic picture? So there is a painful lesion and there are, here you can see the multiple vesicles here. So vesicles over the erythematous base. Here you can see the erythema, that is redness. So you can see the vesicles. So as I told earlier, vesicles are the fluid filled lesions less than 0.5 centimeter, and fluid filled lesions with painful fluid filled lesions are the characteristic feature of herpes always. It could be due to secondary to allergic contact dermatitis or irritant contact dermatitis, but the STD most commonly presents with painful vesicles. Then you have to think in terms of herpes always. So they're asking what is the microscopic finding. So HB body, Zank cell, multinucleated brain cell, Punt cell. So this is herpes case. So you're going to see the multinucleated cells. So which is a characteristic feature of herpes group of infection. So let us rule out the other option. HB bodies, that is HB bodies are seen in molluscum contagiosum. So these bodies are seen in molluscum contagiosum, which usually presents with pearly white papules or the genitalia, and giant molluscum is most commonly seen in HIV. So next is Zank smear. So why Zank smear you can do? So Zank smear mainly presents with uh, you can use the Zank smear for herpes group of infection, where you can see the multinucleated giant cell. So it is a procedure, it is not a finding. So I didn't mark it as correct answer. So multinucleated giant cells can be seen in case of herpes. So in this case, one more thing is Pund cell. So Pund cell is seen in LGV. So LGV, it is seen in LGV. So let us see few points about herpes genitalis. So herpes genitalis, as I told, it is characterized, it is most commonly caused by HSV2. So HSV2 is more commonly involved than HSV1. So how does it present? It presents with multiple painful vesicles, that is fluid-filled lesion over the genitalia. So fever may or may not accompany this, plus or minus fever. So one more thing is like you have to ask for the history of multiple sexual partners also, because most commonly it is transmitted through sexual contact, and you have to examine the partner also. So then you can do the Zank smear examination. So Zank smear shows multinucleated germ cells. Multinucleated germ cells. One thing is, and one more thing is, you can do the histopathological examination where you can see the ballooning degeneration and the inclusion bodies like Cowdrey bodies. So Cowdrey bodies can also be seen. So you have to treat this condition with antivirals like acyclovir, valacyclovir, and famciclovir. So there is a different regimens which are used for the treatment of different type of herpes genitalis. That there are so many different types because recurrence rate is more common. So for recurrence, the treatment regimen is different, and because of the recurrence, you can try with other antiviral drug. One more important thing is you can for syndromic management, the red color kit is used in this because it, just remember herpes genitalis is painful, so it is dangerous. So red is also a danger color. So red also indicates it's dangerous. So that's why herpes genitalis is very painful condition. So it is dangerous. So remember that red color kit is used for syndromic management of herpes genitalis. So thank you so much and wish you all the best.